Imagine standing in a courtroom accused of a crime you didn't commit, with a police officer's lies threatening to destroy your life. Now imagine you hold a secret, a truth so powerful it could unravel everything. What happens when one woman, underestimated by everyone, steps into the light and exposes a system built to silence her? Stay with me, because this story of courage, betrayal, and justice will leave you speechless. The air was thick with anticipation as the sun rose over the small town of Fairview, Virginia. Its rays barely pierced the heavy clouds that hung low, casting a gray pallor over the county courthouse. Inside, the polished oak floors gleamed under fluorescent lights, but the atmosphere was anything but warm. The courtroom was a battleground, and today it was about to witness a fight unlike any other. At the center of it all was Lena Harper, a black woman in her late 40s, seated at the defense table. Her posture was impeccable, her hands folded calmly in her lap, but her dark eyes burned with a quiet intensity. Dressed in a tailored navy blazer and a cream blouse, Lena exuded a dignity that seemed to defy the weight of the accusations against her. To the casual observer, she was just another defendant, but to those who looked closer, there was something extraordinary about her, a strength forged in battles most could never imagine. The room buzzed with murmurs as spectators filled the benches, local reporters scribbling furiously, community members whispering theories, and a group of police officers seated in the back, their faces a mix of loyalty and unease. Lena's case had become the talk of Fairview, a town where tensions over race and policing had simmered for years. The headline screamed of a violent altercation, a black woman accused of assaulting an officer, but the truth was far more complex and far more dangerous. Judge Eleanor Watkins, a stern woman with sharp features and a reputation for fairness, entered the courtroom. Her silver hair was pulled back tightly, and her gaze swept over the room like a hawk assessing its prey. She took her seat, her presence commanding silence. "State versus Lena Harper," the bailiff announced, his voice cutting through the tension. Lena rose, her movements deliberate, and faced the judge. Across the room, Officer Daniel Kessler sat at the plaintiff's table, his police uniform crisp and his expression smug. Kessler was a veteran of the Fairview Police Department, a man whose word carried weight in this town. His light blue eyes flickered with confidence as he leaned back in his chair, a faint smirk playing on his lips. To him, this was just another case, another chance to assert his authority. Lena's lawyer, Marcus Tate, a young black attorney with a fire in his eyes, stood beside her. He was new to Fairview, but his passion for justice had already earned him respect and suspicion from the local establishment. Marcus adjusted his tie, his hand steady despite the nervous energy coursing through him. "Your Honor," he began, his voice clear but tinged with urgency, "we are ready to proceed." Judge Watkins nodded, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Officer Kessler, you may take the stand." Kessler rose with a swagger, his boots clicking against the floor as he made his way to the witness stand. He adjusted his badge before sitting, his posture relaxed but calculated. As he took the oath, Lena watched him closely, her gaze dissecting every movement. The way his fingers twitched, the slight tilt of his head. These were details most would overlook, but Lena had been trained to notice them, to read people like open books. "Officer Kessler," the prosecutor, a wiry man named Paul Donovan, began, "please tell the court what happened on the night of April 12th. Kessler cleared his throat, his voice steady and authoritative. That evening, I was on patrol in the downtown area when I received a call about a suspicious individual near the corner of Elm and 3rd. I arrived to find the defendant, Lena Harper, standing outside a closed storefront. She appeared agitated, and when I asked for her identification, she refused to comply. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Suspicious individual was a phrase that carried weight in Fairview, often code for profiling. Kessler continued, his tone growing more dramatic. She raised her voice, became belligerent, and when I attempted to calm the situation, she shoved me and tried to grab my service weapon. I had no choice but to restrain her. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Lena remained still, her face an unreadable mask. From the back of the room, a woman whispered, "That doesn't sound right." Heads turned, but Judge Watkins' gavel came down swiftly. "Order in the court." "Thank you, Officer Kessler," Donovan said, his voice smooth. "You may step down." Marcus Tate rose, his expression calm, but his eyes blazing with determination. "Your Honor, before we proceed—" "Save it for cross-examination, Mr. Tate," the judge interrupted. "Let's keep this moving." Lena leaned toward Marcus, her voice low but firm. "Stay focused, Marcus. He's lying, and we both know it." Marcus nodded, though the weight of the moment was clear in his tightened jaw. As the prosecution rested its case, the atmosphere grew heavier. Kessler returned to his seat, his smirk wider now, and exchanged a glance with his fellow officers in the back row. Lena caught the subtle nod he gave them, and her eyes narrowed imperceptibly. "Ms. Harper," Judge Watkins said, her tone measured but probing, "it's your turn to testify." Lena stood, smoothing her blazer as she approached the stand. The room fell silent, the weight of every stare pressing down on her. She took her seat, adjusting the microphone with a calm precision that seemed almost military. Donovan approached, his sharp features set in a predatory grin. "Miss Harper," he began, his voice dripping with skepticism, "you've heard Officer Kessler's account. He claims you were uncooperative, aggressive, and even tried to take his weapon. Can you explain your actions that night?" Lena leaned forward slightly, her voice steady and resonant. "I can, but let me be clear. Officer Kessler's account is not just inaccurate, it's a deliberate fabrication." A collective gasp filled the room. Donovan's grin faltered, but he quickly recovered. "That's a serious accusation, Ms. Harper. Do you have any evidence to support it?" Lena's eyes locked onto his, unyielding. "The truth doesn't need to shout, Mr. Donovan. It speaks for itself, and it will soon enough." The prosecutor opened his mouth to retort, but Lena's unshakable composure threw him off balance. Judge Watkins cleared her throat, signaling for the questioning to continue. As Lena began to recount her version of events, the room hung on her every word, sensing that this was no ordinary defendant. Lena sat on the stand, her posture as steady as a soldier's. She took a moment to collect her thoughts, her hands resting lightly on the wooden railing. The silence was suffocating, every breath held in anticipation. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried a weight that filled the room. "That night," she began, her eyes sweeping across the courtroom, "I was walking home after a late shift at the community center where I volunteer. I stopped at the corner of Elm and 3rd to check a text from my daughter. That's when Officer Kessler approached me." Donovan leaned forward, ready to pounce. "And you're saying this encounter was unprovoked?" Lena tilted her head slightly, her expression unwavering. I was standing on a public sidewalk checking my phone. I wasn't causing a disturbance or breaking any laws. Officer Kessler approached with his flashlight in my face and demanded to know what I was doing there. His tone was hostile from the start. "How did you respond?" Donovan asked, his voice laced with doubt. "I told him I was checking a message and asked if there was a problem," Lena replied evenly. "He demanded my ID. I asked why he needed it since I hadn't done anything wrong." Donovan seized the opportunity. "So you challenged his authority?" "I questioned his reasoning," Lena corrected, her voice firm but measured. "I have the right to know why I'm being interrogated on a public street. I wasn't obstructing traffic or causing trouble. I wanted clarity," the gallery murmured. Judge Watkins banged her gavel lightly. "Order!" Lena continued, her tone steady. "When I asked for clarification, he accused me of being uncooperative. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to cause trouble, but before I could finish, he grabbed my arm and twisted it behind my back." Her words landed like a thunderclap. Donovan raised an eyebrow, trying to regain control. "You're claiming Officer Kessler restrained you without cause?" "Yes," Lena said firmly. "When I told him to let go, he tightened his grip and said, 'People like you need to know your place.'" The courtroom erupted in gasps. Judge Watkins' gavel came down harder. "Order! I will not tolerate interruptions." Donovan forced a smile, though his confidence was visibly shaken. "Ms. Harper, that's a serious allegation. Do you have any proof of this statement?" Lena's gaze didn't waver. "No, because Officer Kessler's body camera was conveniently turned off. Isn't that right, officer?" All eyes turned to Kessler, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His smirk was gone, replaced by a tense frown. Donovan cleared his throat. "Let's stick to the facts, Ms. Harper. You claim the officer restrained you. What happened next?" Lena folded her hands in her lap, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I told him I didn't consent to being touched and asked him to release me. He refused. Instead, he accused me of resisting arrest even though I hadn't moved. When I tried to pull my arm free, he slammed me against his patrol car and handcuffed me." Her words struck the room like a blow. Whispers broke out among the spectators, their faces a mix of shock and anger. Even Judge Watkins seemed momentarily unsettled, her pen pausing over her notes. "And after that," Donovan pressed, his tone quieter now, "he told me I was under arrest for assaulting an officer," Lena said, her voice unwavering. "He claimed I tried to grab his weapon, which is a lie. I never touched his holster." Donovan leaned back, trying to regain his footing. "Ms. Harper, you're a physically capable woman. Is it possible Officer Kessler felt threatened by your resistance?" Lena's eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm capable, but I'm not a threat to a trained officer. I didn't resist until he violated my rights. His actions were about control, not safety." Donovan opened his mouth to respond, but Lena cut him off. "And let's be clear. His claim that I reached for his weapon was a fabrication to justify his excessive force." The room froze. Kessler's face paled, his hands clenching the arms of his chair. Donovan's expression darkened as he struggled to maintain his composure. "Ms. Harper," he said, his voice tight, "you're asking this court to believe that Officer Kessler, a respected member of the Fairview Police Department, made this all up. Do you have any evidence to support your version of events?" Lena smiled faintly, a subtle shift that carried immense power. "The truth has a way of rising to the surface, Mr. Donovan. You'll see it soon enough." Judge Watkins leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Ms. Harper, Are you suggesting there's evidence the court hasn't seen? Marcus Tate stood quickly. Your Honor, the defense intends to present additional evidence during the proceedings. Donovan scoffed. Your Honor, this is a delay tactic. If the defense had anything substantial, they would have presented it by now. Lena turned to the judge, her voice calm but resolute. Your Honor, justice moves slowly, but it moves surely. When the truth comes out, it will be undeniable. Judge Watkins studied her for a moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. Very well. Court will recess until tomorrow at 9 a.m. As the gavel fell, the courtroom erupted into whispers. Lena rose from the stand, her movements graceful and controlled. She walked past Kessler, who avoided her gaze, and joined Marcus at the defense table. Are you sure about this? Marcus whispered, his voice laced with concern. Lena placed a hand on his arm, her grip steady. Trust me, Marcus. Tomorrow we'll tear down his lies brick by brick. As she left the courtroom, the murmurs of the crowd followed her. Outside, the gray clouds had parted, and a faint ray of sunlight broke through, illuminating the courthouse steps. Lena paused, her eyes scanning the horizon. This fight was far from over, but she was ready. Ready in a way only someone who had faced true adversity could be. The courthouse steps were crowded as Lena descended, the weight of the day clinging to her like a shadow. Reporters jostled for position, their cameras flashing, but Lena moved through them with quiet dignity, her focus unshaken. Marcus followed close behind, his briefcase clutched tightly, his face a mixture of determination and unease. Lena, he said, catching up to her, we need to talk. Whatever you're holding back, I need to know now. The judge senses it. Donovan's on edge, and Kessler, he's starting to crack. What's your play? Lena stopped at the edge of the steps, her silhouette framed against the fading light. She turned to him, her gaze steady. You'll know when the time is right, Marcus. Meet me at my place tonight. I'll lay it all out. Marcus blinked, caught off guard by her sudden openness. You're serious? I am, she said firmly, but not here. Too many eyes. Lena's home was a modest bungalow on the edge of Fairview, nestled among towering pines that whispered in the evening breeze. The porch light cast a warm glow over the neatly trimmed lawn, and a small American flag hung proudly by the door. Marcus arrived just after dusk, his car crunching against the gravel driveway. He stepped out, his breath visible in the cool air, and approached the door with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Lena answered the knock immediately, as if she'd been waiting. She wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back in a low bun. The poised defendant from the courtroom was gone, replaced by a woman who seemed both grounded and formidable. Come in, she said, stepping aside. Marcus entered, his eyes scanning the living room. It was warm and inviting, but sparse, with only a few personal touches. A framed photo of Lena in military fatigues, standing beside a group of soldiers in a desert landscape. A shadow box on the mantel containing a folded flag and a Bronze Star medal. A bookshelf lined with volumes on military history, leadership, and civil rights. You live alone? Marcus asked, settling onto the couch. For now, Lena replied, her tone neutral. She gestured to a chair across from her. Coffee? I'm good, Marcus said, setting his briefcase down. I'm here for answers, Lena, no distractions. She nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Fair enough. Lena moved to a small wooden cabinet in the corner, retrieving a weathered leather portfolio. She placed it on the coffee table between them and sat down, her posture relaxed but alert. Marcus eyed the portfolio, his curiosity piqued. "What's this?" he asked. "My service record," Lena said simply, "and a few other things you need to know." Marcus hesitated, then opened the portfolio. Inside were neatly organized documents, military discharge papers, commendations, a certificate of completion from the Army Ranger School, and a letter of recognition from a commanding officer. His eyes widened as he read. "Wait," he said, flipping through the pages. "You're a decorated Army veteran? Ranger School? Lena, this is huge." She leaned forward, her voice steady. "I served 22 years in the U.S. Army, including 2 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq. I was a master sergeant, one of the first black women to complete Ranger School. I've led missions, trained soldiers, and faced threats most people can't imagine. But this fight, Marcus, this one's different." Marcus stared at her, his mind racing. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? This changes everything." Lena's expression darkened. "It's not just about who I am, Marcus. It's about what Kessler represents, a system that lets men like him abuse their power, especially against people who look like me. This isn't just my fight. It's for every person who's been profiled, harassed, or silenced." Marcus ran a hand over his face, processing her words. "When we drop this in court, Donovan's going to lose it. Kessler's done." Lena shook her head. "Kessler won't go down easily. Men like him cling to their lies like lifelines. We need to be strategic, not just reactive." Marcus nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "So what's the plan?" Lena's eyes glinted with determination. "Tomorrow, we don't just expose Kessler's lies. We expose the system that protects him. We show the jury who I am, not just a defendant, but a woman who spent her life fighting for freedom only to have it threatened in her own hometown." Marcus leaned forward, his voice low. "And how do we do that?" Lena stood, walking to the mantel where the shadow box rested. She touched the glass gently, her fingers tracing the outline of the folded flag. "We make them feel the weight of the truth. We make them see that justice isn't just a word. It's a promise we have to keep." Her voice was steady, but there was a fire in it, a resolve that sent a chill down Marcus's spine. "Lena," he said softly, "tomorrow's going to be a war." She turned to him, her eyes fierce. "I've been in wars, Marcus. This is just another battlefield." The next morning, the courthouse was a hive of activity. News of Lena's case had spread like wildfire, fueled by local blogs and social media posts. A crowd had gathered on the steps, holding signs that read "Justice for Lena" and "End Police Corruption." Reporters from national outlets had arrived, their cameras trained on the entrance. Inside, the courtroom was packed, the air electric with anticipation. Lena sat at the defense table, her expression calm but focused. Her navy blazer was replaced by a charcoal suit, her presence commanding yet understated. Marcus flipped through his notes beside her, his nerves evident in the rapid tapping of his pen. "You ready?" he asked, his voice low. Lena met his gaze, her voice steady. "I was born ready, Marcus. Let's do this." The gavel struck, and Judge Watkins entered, her stern face surveying the crowd. "Court is now in session. We will continue with State versus Lena Harper." Donovan stood, his posture stiff. "Your Honor, the prosecution intends to reinforce Officer Kessler's testimony and present additional evidence to support the charges." Lena didn't flinch, her hands resting lightly on the table. The prosecutor called Kessler to the stand again, his demeanor polished but strained. He adjusted his tie as he walked, his movements slower, as if the weight of the room's scrutiny was finally sinking in. "Officer Kessler," Donovan began, "please remind the court of the events that led to the defendant's arrest." Kessler cleared his throat, his voice tinged with unease. "As I said, I encountered Ms. Harper near a closed storefront. She was acting suspiciously, refused to identify herself, and became aggressive when I questioned her." "And you stand by your account?" Donovan pressed. "Yes," Kessler said, though his eyes flicked toward Lena for a fleeting moment. Donovan nodded. "Thank you, Officer Kessler. No further questions." Marcus rose, his expression unreadable. He approached the stand with deliberate steps, each one echoing in the silent courtroom. "Officer Kessler," he began, his voice calm but sharp, "you've testified that my client was aggressive and tried to take your weapon. Is that correct?" "Yes," Kessler replied, his voice firm but his posture tense. "And you also claimed your body camera was turned off during the incident," Marcus continued. "A convenient malfunction, wouldn't you say?" Kessler's jaw tightened. "It was a technical issue. It happens." "Does it?" Marcus said, raising an eyebrow. "You've been on the force for 12 years. How often does your body camera fail during an arrest?" Kessler hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "Rarely, but it happened this time." "During an arrest where you claimed my client was so dangerous you feared for your safety?" Marcus pressed. "Yes," Kessler said, his voice hardening. Marcus turned, pacing slowly in front of the jury. "And is it also a coincidence, Officer Kessler, that a nearby business's security camera captured part of this encounter?" The courtroom erupted into whispers. Judge Watkins struck her gavel. "Order, Mr. Tate. If you have evidence, present it." Marcus returned to the defense table, retrieving a USB drive. "Your Honor, the defense submits video evidence from a security camera near the incident." Donovan shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. The defense should have disclosed this earlier." "Sit down, Mr. Donovan," Judge Watkins said, her tone icy. "Let's see the footage." The bailiff inserted the drive, and the courtroom screen flickered to life. The footage was grainy, but clear enough to show Kessler approaching Lena, his flashlight blinding her as he barked orders. Her voice was calm. "I'm just checking my phone, officer." "Why do you need my ID?" Kessler's response was sharp. "You don't get to question me." The video showed him grabbing her arm, twisting it as she said, "Let go of me." Then the moment he slammed her against the patrol car, his voice clear, "Know your place." The courtroom exploded in gasps and murmurs. Judge Watkins banged her gavel repeatedly. "Order! I will clear this courtroom if necessary." The recess that followed was chaotic, with reporters rushing to file stories and spectators whispering in disbelief. Lena sat calmly at the defense table, her composure unshaken. Marcus paced, his hands gesturing wildly. "Lena, that video just destroyed his story." Lena nodded, her voice steady. "It's a start, Marcus, but we're not done yet." When court reconvened, the tension was palpable. Kessler's confident facade was gone, replaced by a pale, sweating man who avoided eye contact. His fellow officers in the back row shifted uncomfortably, their loyalty wavering. Judge Watkins' voice cut through the silence. "Mr. Tate, do you have additional evidence?" Marcus rose, his movements deliberate. "Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Lena Harper to the stand." The room buzzed as Lena approached the stand, her steps measured and confident. She sat, her posture straight, her presence commanding the room's attention. "Ms. Harper," Marcus began, "you've heard the accusations against you. Resisting arrest, assaulting an officer, attempting to seize a weapon. Are these true?" "No, they are not," Lena replied, her voice ringing with conviction. "Tell the court what happened that night," Marcus said. Lena took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping the room. "I was walking home after volunteering at the community center. I stopped to check a text from my daughter when Officer Kessler approached me. He demanded my ID without explaining why. I asked for clarification, and he took it as defiance. When I tried to explain, he grabbed my arm, twisted it, and slammed me against his car. He accused me of reaching for his weapon, which I never did." "Did you threaten him?" Marcus asked. "No," Lena said firmly. "I told him to let go. His actions weren't about law enforcement. They were about power, about punishing me for questioning him." Marcus paused, letting her words sink in. "Ms. Harper, the prosecution has portrayed you as an ordinary civilian who turned violent. Is there more to your story the court should know?" Lena's eyes met his, a flicker of resolve breaking through her calm. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "I am Master Sergeant Lena Harper, retired U.S. Army. I served 22 years, including 3 combat tours. I was one of the first black women to complete Ranger School. I've led soldiers in war zones, faced insurgents, and earned a Bronze Star for valor. I've dedicated my life to protecting this country." The courtroom gasped, the silence that followed heavy with awe. Judge Watkins' pen froze, and Kessler's face drained of color. Marcus stepped forward, his voice rising. "As a decorated veteran, you were trained to handle high-pressure situations. Did you use that training during this encounter?" "Yes," Lena said. "I stayed calm, tried to de-escalate, and protected myself without violence. Kessler wasn't a threat to my safety. He was a threat to my dignity." "Did you attempt to harm him or take his weapon?" Marcus asked. "No," Lena said, her voice unwavering. "My training taught me discipline. I knew he was trying to provoke me, and I refused to give him what he wanted." The courtroom erupted, the judge's gavel struggling to restore order. When the noise subsided, Marcus turned to the jury. "You've heard Officer Kessler's lies and seen the truth from a woman who has served this nation with honor. Who do you believe?" Lena stepped down, her head held high. She leaned toward Marcus. "The cracks are widening." Marcus nodded, a determined glint in his eyes. "Let's bring the whole wall down." The final day of the trial was electric. The courtroom was overflowing with standing room only. Kessler sat at the plaintiff's table, his face haggard, his hands trembling. His fellow officers had thinned out, their absence a silent admission of doubt. Judge Watkins addressed the prosecution. "Mr. Donovan, does the prosecution wish to proceed?" Donovan rose, his voice strained. "Your Honor, we call Officer Kessler to clarify his testimony." Kessler took the stand, his movements sluggish. Donovan approached, his tone cautious. "Officer Kessler, you've heard Ms. Harper's claims. Do you have anything to add?" Kessler cleared his throat, his voice shaky. "Her story is exaggerated. I acted within my duties." "And the video?" Donovan pressed. "How do you explain what we saw?" Kessler hesitated, his eyes darting. "It's incomplete. It doesn't show her behavior before the recording." Marcus rose for cross-examination, his presence commanding. "Officer Kessler, you've claimed my client tried to take your weapon. Where's the evidence? No fingerprints, no witnesses, just your word." Kessler's jaw tightened. I know what happened. Marcus nodded slowly. But the court knows differently. The video shows you escalating the situation, using excessive force, and making derogatory remarks. And now we know Ms. Harper is a decorated veteran. Does it embarrass you to know the woman you targeted has faced dangers you can't imagine? Kessler flinched. That's irrelevant. It's not, Marcus shot back. You abused your power, lied under oath, and thought you could get away with it. But you didn't count on Lena Harper fighting back, did you? The room was silent, Kessler's silence damning. Marcus turned to the judge. No further questions. As Kessler stepped down, Marcus presented one final piece of evidence. Kessler's personnel file, revealing a history of complaints for excessive force and racial bias, buried by the department. The jury studied the documents, their expressions darkening. Lena took the stand one last time, addressing the jury directly. I fought for this country, she said, her voice steady but powerful. I faced enemies abroad, but I never thought I'd face one here, in my own town, wearing a badge. Officer Kessler didn't see me as a veteran, a mother, or a person. He saw me as a target. But I'm here to tell you that the truth matters, justice matters, and I'm fighting for everyone who's been silenced by those in power. The room erupted in applause, Judge Watkins' gavel barely containing the emotion. Lena returned to her seat, the jury's eyes following her with respect. In closing arguments, Donovan's words were hollow, urging the jury to focus on Kessler's intentions. Marcus, however, was electrifying. Lena Harper is a hero who was profiled, assaulted, and lied about. This isn't just about one officer, it's about a system that protects him. You have the power to demand accountability. Make the right choice. The jury deliberated for hours. Lena sat in the hallway, her daughter, a college student named Maya, beside her. Mom, Maya said, her voice trembling, you're going to win this. Lena squeezed her hand. It's not just about winning, Maya. It's about showing the world what's right. The verdict came swiftly. The foreperson, a young man with a steady voice, read, In the case of State versus Lena Harper, we find the defendant not guilty on all charges. We also recommend a full investigation into Officer Kessler's conduct. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Lena exhaled, her eyes glistening but her composure intact. Marcus hugged her, his voice choked. We did it? Outside, Lena faced a sea of cameras and supporters. This victory isn't just mine, she said, her voice resonant. It's for every person who's been wronged, every voice that's been silenced. The fight for justice doesn't end here, it's just beginning. Months later, Kessler was fired and charged with perjury. The investigation uncovered systemic issues in the Fairview Police Department, sparking reforms. Lena became a national figure, speaking at rallies and inspiring a movement. But at home, she remained a mother, a veteran, and a woman who knew the truth could change everything. This isn't just a story, it's a call to action. If Lena's courage moved you, subscribe for more stories of resilience and justice. Turn on notifications and join us as we uncover the truths that shape our world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.